And everyone's been asking me about the compost, and they're like, yes, you've done the pruning videos, but how about this, your compost trick? So I'm going to try and put a quick video together on how to do the compost. So what I intend to do is show you how I gather the material. So first of all, I try to get like loads of leaves, which basically I'm able to get that from our garden here. We've got a whole bunch of dry leaves here which have just been falling, and I've just been gathering them up in this nice green bin over here. And the piece resistance is the kitchen waste. I put my gloves on because I've been gathering this for a few weeks, and okay, this is fresh today, fresh compost coming in. It's got some old flowers, a bit of kitchen waste. Guys, try and make sure you don't have like food waste, because obviously that's going to attract rats, and we don't want rats coming around our property. But yeah, leftover food like rice, potatoes is fine. So here's like an idea of some compost I've been gathering for a while. Well, actually some kitchen waste. You can see that's obviously got some friends, some little maggots in there going on. That's actually going to serve as our activator today, who is going to be in the center of the compost. And we've got a little lizard there. He's all excited to be part of our clip. We've got some fresh clippings from our roses. Fortunately, our roses have a little infection, so we've had to, cut them back. But a good thing is we've got a whole bunch of leaves here that we can use. And obviously the compost is going to get really hot because we're doing a 18-day compost. So even though we've got some infected leaves here and stuff, it's not going to affect your compost. All that is going to be cured in it. So if you guys just stay tuned, we shall readjust the camera angles and we shall show you how the mix is done. Started with a little nice dry leaf base here. This is definitely very high carbon. As you can see, it's all brown. So this is probably, I don't know, I'm not a genius, but I mean, off the top of my head, I'll say it's easily something like 100 to 1 in terms of ratio of carbon to nitrogen. So this is very, very carbon based. And I've got got a stone in there. We don't want a stone in our compost. And I'll just take some of my compost that has been sitting for a little while, and I'll just shake that out, try and get some of that nice. That is definitely very high nitrogen. That is probably closer to 2 to 1, 5 to 1. There we are. Don't worry too much about I know you might say, oh, that looks quite big and stuff. Ooh, someone forgot a teaspoon and actually got it in the compost. I guess it's my folks. But yeah, so don't worry too much about the big oranges and stuff, because they've been breaking down for a while. Once the heat hits them, it's actually going to get nice and warm. Now I'm going to show you a little trick that's going to make this compost go down really quick. Just need to pause. Okay, we can start recording again. Alright guys, I'm just going to use a shovel just to just break down, make sure that nothing's too chunky, because I've got like some pieces of yam in here. So obviously those need to just be chopped up a little bit, and I'm just using a shovel, nothing too special. As I said, you can do this at home. You don't need to get any professional equipment. And I'll just hit a little bit more. Ooh, there's a bag here that someone forgot to open. Yours truly, probably. Yep. Some more of that good stuff in there. I'm gonna pile on another layer of leaves real quick. Got some more of our dry leaves and some not so dry fresh grass. The fresh grass is about 25 to 1 on the carbon ratio, so that's also a good mix in there. But I'm going to show you the magic ingredient. We're going to pile this up to about as close to a meter high as we can. But before we get there, what you want to do is each layer you do, you want to get a little bit of water. And I mean, how much water really? Not too much. You don't want it completely saturated, but you want to make sure that your carbon is nicely soaked up. You can start right at the ground level, but I prefer to actually get a second level on before I actually start putting on the water. That way it prevents it from over soaking, I find. we go. That should be just about enough water. And what you want at the end, which I'll show you right at the end, is that when you pick up a handful, you just want like literally just a drop of water. You don't want it, you know, completely saturated, as I said. So we're going to pile this up a few more layers, and I'm going to get back to you what it looks like in the end. All right, I've got some weeds here. These weeds actually have seeds in them as well. You'll be wondering, oh, do you really want to compost that? Trust me, the heat of the compost is going to break down the seeds as well. So you can see this. So some really nasty weeds because of the seeds. Anywhere the seeds drop, they just tend to sprout. Now with this one, because of the way the branch is, it's not really going to give me a nice good compost. So I'm just going to peel the little branches off it and maybe just use the smaller edges of the stem, because the main stem is not really going to break down that fine in the compost. So I mean, you could just use your, you know, depending on how much nitrogen based materials you have, which is like, you know, mainly your kitchen waste, which is, as I said, would be the stuff that will be high in nitrogen. So it's not, there's no perfect science to it. I mean, how do you work out 25 to 1 in carbon to nitrogen? You just go experiment a little bit. Obviously the green stuff like this is already 25 to 1 generally. All green waste from the garden is generally 25 to 1. So I normally say grass clippings, and normally the easiest way to go about making this compost, because you don't really need to faff about with, you know, mixing other things in. But obviously, if you think about your compost like a balanced diet, the more variety you've got in there, the better the finished product, the more balanced your finished compost will be. You don't want it to be just, you know, just too much phosphorus or too much potassium, or, you know, I mean, too much nitrogen is never a problem, because obviously you can mix it in with your soil and get a nice good balance. But yeah, so that's just a little tip there. And then obviously as you go through the process, every layer that you do, you want to make sure that you get it nice and wet. Obviously the more carbon base that you have, the more water that you need to soak it up. The more green you have, the less kind of water you need, because obviously there'll be a lot of moisture already from the green stuff. Alright, you got a little bit of paper as well. What you gotta do with your paper is, okay, this is clearly not recyclable paper. This is that paper that's got what's it called, like foil on it. So what you gotta do is remove the foil bit, you know, this metallic bit. That's definitely not going to compost because that's a petrochemical. But this was once a living thing, obviously came from a tree. So what you do with your paper is you just cut it up into nice little bits. Yeah, you can even use old newspapers, yeah? Put them through a shredder, and got a bit of tissue here as well. Yep, that's all gonna turn into nice compost at the end of this process. You wouldn't even know that there was paper used in it. If you have some old newspapers as well, you can shred them, put them through your shredder, and you can use that as well to make up for your carbon. But remember, every step of the way, you want to make sure that with each layer you're doing, you're getting it nice and wet. We're almost there at the end. You can see our hip is taking and getting on a nice shape. Minimum size that you want is a cubic meter. I think we're already at the cubic meter spot, but I've got a little bit more kitchen waste, so I'm gonna stick another layer on, and I've got quite a bit of dry leaves still to go, so yeah, I'm gonna stick also some dry leaves on as well. So there we go, that's all looking nice and wet. Alright, so next layer coming on, stay tuned. Alright guys, we've got our pile pretty much good to go, but obviously I don't want flies and all that kind of stuff, so I tend to get a layer of dry leaves and close it off with a nice good layer of dry leaves. That just helps, you know, make sure that there are no flies sitting on my compost or anything. You don't really want the kitchen waste to be on the outside. I find generally this nice layer of dry leaves over it. Got a cigarette butt there, definitely don't want that in our compost. Got a little plastic, don't want that in there either. Yeah, you might maybe not want to use a bin that you have to stick your whole head into, but yeah, I'm also known as the original bushman, so it's not too much of a problem for me. Alright, so that's our nice compost heap. It's about a meter, give or take. And to finish it off, as I keep on saying, with every layer that you do, you want to get it nice and wet. So that's what we're going to do now. Just make sure the dry leaves we put on for the final bit are nicely soaked in. I mean, you might get the occasional bit of kitchen waste sticking out here or there in the corner. I mean, it's not the end of the world kind of thing. And trust me, this is going to stand now for 3 days. Well, actually 4 days. And on the 4th day, we're going to do the first turn. To make sure that the process has got started, you can use a thermometer if you got one and stick it down the center. Remember, not too much water, you just want it enough so that when you grab a handful of your compost, you just get a nice drip. It's not completely saturated, so you can see there's nothing just constantly dripping. I have to squeeze it to get a little drip of water out. So that's a nice good consistency. Obviously we're here in Africa doing this, so it's nice and hot already, so cheating a little bit obviously. We have to use a little bit more water than you would in the West just to get everything nice and dry. I'm just using my foot here. You can use the shovel probably to just get the, I do have a shovel somewhere, yes I do, to just get the bottom bit all nicely tucked in. So you have a nicer looking pile. There we go. And as I said, to make sure that the process has started, what you want to do is like stick a thermometer in there. You want to be looking for about 40 degrees Celsius. And if you haven't got a thermometer, this is what I do, because my outdoor thermometer is broken. I actually haven't done a compost heap in quite a while, because I've actually had to go off the farm, unfortunately, due to some security issues. Here in Nigeria, it's not been possible for me to actually continue in our farm, but obviously I still like doing green stuff. So I'll just stick that down in the middle. I'll give it a few seconds, not too long, 20 seconds or so, and I'll take it out. Oh, there we go. That is warm. That's warm. I'll get the guy from the camera to just feel it.
Yeah, that's warm already.
That's warm.
Yeah, that's warm.
Yeah, that's warm. So, a crude way of finding out, you know, I mean, our temperature is supposed to be about 36 degrees. They're checking our temperature everywhere with, you know, those guns right now, thanks to COVID. We all know what our temperature is on a daily basis. So yeah, once that's warmer than your hand, you know that you're definitely close to your 40s. That's probably already 42 degrees right there. So yeah, in about 4 days time, we're going to flip this and I'll show you what it looks like. See you in a few days.